conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's a licensed dentist and author of facial mythologies, or myology, sorry, clarifying the link between breathing, sleep quality, and a child's development, other than Dr. Leslie Pasco.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me here.
Welcome, Dr. Leslie on Abstract. And can you please introduce more of yourself that I please?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you've got it right. I'm a dentist of nearly 30 years. Retired from dentistry, I focus on oral facial myology and pairing that with some sacred breathing exercises for children's jaw and airway development. It's critical that children grow right so they can breathe right and they can live their best life the way their genetic code is designed to do.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Leslie. Thank you. So today, let's talk about, well, the link between breathing, sleep quality, and the child development. In the simple terms, if a parent remembers or nothing else from our conversation today, what is the single most important thing they need to understand about how a child breathes and how child's brain develops?
Yes, well, most importantly, a parent needs to understand that a child who is breathing through their mouth and has audible breathing day or night, even just a little bit of snoring, it's not normal. It's not the way the child is supposed to breathe. And if a child is breathing through their mouth, making noises when they're sleeping, even just a little bit of snoring becomes a lot more snoring later on in their life. The body doesn't understand that that child is sleeping safely in their bed or at home comfortably on the couch watching their cartoons. Because, see, Daniel, mouth breathing is reserved for the fight or flight response. It's reserved as our backup breathing system, and it's what human beings use to breathe when they're in danger, their mouth. And that's all the mouth breathing is reserved for. And if a child is breathing through their mouth day or night, or worse yet, both, or if they have any type of resistance in their breathing at all, and they're not getting the full breath that they need to grow and develop, the brain takes that as a sign of danger. And it starts to operate the body as if the child's in danger. And it turns off everything that that child needs for long term growth and development, and it turns on everything that that child needs for short term bursts of energy for survival only, just to get out of that dangerous situation at that moment. So in a summary, really, mouth breathing triggers and confuses the brain. And the brain puts the child into a fight or flight response because it thinks the child is in danger. The child ends up growing neurological connections and that operate that child's body as if that body is in danger when it's really safe and sound.
Dr. Leslie, what we gonna do if that is the case?
Yeah, well, we have to teach children how to breathe through their nose. And that starts with a full assessment, making sure first that the child can breathe through their nose. If they have any obstruction that's preventing them from breathing through their nose, that needs to be addressed first and foremost. So, a breathing function test to assess their breathing. 9 times out of 10, we find that children can breathe through their nose. It's just a habit that was developed that causes them to breathe through their mouth. Once we determine that they can breathe through their mouth, then we just start the neuromuscular re-education process of myofunctional therapy paired with myofunctional orthopedic appliances that children can wear to help train their muscles to function properly so that they can keep their lips closed, their tongue in the right position, and they can breathe through their nose.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Leslie. We tend to think of a sleep issue as a behavioral or disciplinary problems. Where did you first realize that the root cause was actually an anatomical or respiratory?
Yeah, so, you know, as a dentist for nearly 30 years, I noticed that the medical histories of my adult patients were getting worse and longer and more extensive over that period of time. Where when I first came out of dental school, it'd take me just a few minutes to look over someone's medical history. I found, nearly 30 years later, it could take up to 20 minutes. It was pretty in depth. I realized that the number of adult patients that I had on CPAP machines was skyrocketing, and they weren't healthy. They had heart disease, diabetes, memory issues, heart issues, high blood pressure issues, digestive disorders. Uh, the list goes on. And I realized at that point that they all had dental issues, the way their teeth came together, the way their teeth were crowded, jaw joint issues. They had that all in common. And tracing that line all the way back, you can see that if a child isn't geared or set up to grow right from the beginning, those problems just continue to follow them into their adulthood. And that behavior problem follows them too. Because when they're young and they're developing their brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part for logical linear behavior and thinking, if they're not oxygenating and they're not getting the rest that they need, that part of the brain doesn't develop well. The science shows it. And that lack of development follows that child into their adulthood. So they become anxious adults, they become depressed adults, less productive adults, adults that can't sleep, that are overexhausted and tired, which is dangerous in our society because those adults are exhausted and sleepy and they're driving cars, and it risks, it increases the risk for accidents. It becomes a long-term effect. So that's when I first, I mean, I guess it's been I don't know if there was an aha moment necessarily, but that's when I first realized, like, there's more to this. Why are we getting sicker? Why are people having trouble sleeping? And it's because we're not using our body parts properly. We're breathing through our mouth instead of our nose, both as children and adults. And it's a habit that's been going on for decades for some of these individuals, and it has to be broken. It has to be retrained.
Definitely, we need to train ourselves, people. When we say a child is a good sleeper, we usually mean they don't wake us up. But from a development standpoint, what actually defines optimal sleep versus just adequate sleep?
Yeah, it's the child's feeling and behavior after they've rested. Our children getting up and they're groggy, they don't want to get up, they're tired, they're moody, they have dark circles under their eyes. That's not good sleep. If a child's not growing properly, if they're underdeveloped, if they're smaller in stature than where they should be for their age, that's another sign that they're probably not well rested, because when a child is resting, they're producing more of that growth hormone that's helping them reach their ideal growth pattern, and so that slows down. You can see it in their behavior as being hyperactive, inability to focus, inability to listen, and the science supports this. There were studies after studies done on this. You can see it in their scholastic performance. A lot of them suffer educationally. Reading scores, arithmetic scores, they go down when a child isn't sleeping. So you're going to see maybe a child might appear to be sleeping well because maybe they don't wake up their parents throughout the night. However, most parents don't know when their children are waking up during the night because they don't hear them. The restless sleep and moving around the bed a lot, sweating. The covers are a mess. They have bedhead when they wake up. That's fragmented sleep. It's not good sleep. And children need good sleep in order to develop their brains.
Dr. Leslie, there's a strong visual component to this topic regarding facial structure. How does chronic poor breathing physically shape a child's face over time? And what gets age is that growth window open or close?
Well, what happens is when a child's mouth is hanging open or slightly parted lips, and the tongue is not in the right position inside the mouth, which should be laying across the entire roof of the mouth, then that changes the harmony of how the muscles are working together. There's muscle structures, without getting into too much detail, that actually will pull the jaw back when the lips are parted or the mouth is open and the tongue is in a lower position. That tongue signals other muscles to actually pull that lower jaw back. So now instead of a child's jaw growing upward, forward, and out, it's now growing down and back, and it's growing into their own airway. Their tongue and the muscles associated with that area become that child's obstruction. Now, it's very common to think that the obstruction is in the nose, and that if the child has a high vaulted palate and you straighten out that palate with a palatal expander, which is a very common orthodontic treatment, that everything's going to be okay. But the science and the research shows that it's not okay, that they get some result, but they don't get the full result. Because not only do you need to change the architecture of a child's face, but you need to change the function as well. So the form and the function go hand in hand. And the best time to do that is when a child is going through the majority of their facial growth and development, which 60% of a child's face is finished growing by the age of 6. So the ideal golden window, Daniel, is a child who's between the ages of 3 and 6. However, there are options for after that age and even before that age. And we have children in our center that are, in their teenage years. Again, it's retraining and reprogramming those muscles. And that contributes to better facial growth, but also better breathing, better sleep, and a better quality of life.
Very well said, Dr. Leslie. Pediatricians often look at tonsils size. However, is it tonsillectomy or silver bullet, or are we missing the point if we remove them but don't retrain the breathing patterns?
100%, Daniel. We're missing it. If you remove the tonsils and the adenoids and we don't retrain the muscle, all we're dealing with there is form, not function. And so the child's breathing patterns might improve slightly, but they don't improve to that child's full potential. So we'll hear less snoring. Maybe they're less noisy when they sleep. Maybe they're sleeping a little bit better, but the muscle posture still needs to be reprogrammed and needs to be retrained so that the tongue is sitting where it's supposed to sit so it doesn't become that child's airway obstruction during their childhood, during their teenage years, during their adulthood, or during their geriatric years either. So it all comes down to muscle retraining. We hear it all the time from the exercise gurus, exercise, exercise, exercise. Well, our faces need exercise too, Daniel, and that's where we come in.
Interesting, Dr. Leslie. We know blue light affects melatonin, but there's a chemical link between screen time during the day and obstructed breathing at night.
Yeah, it's overstimulation. Again, it's that response. You're looking for that high. You're looking for that instant response. And so for adults, we recommend. I'm not a sleep coach, so I can't say exactly, but I know it's recommended to turn off your electronics a couple hours before you go to bed. If you're reading a book in bed, which I often do, I make sure that I don't have a regular light. I have more of a yellow orange light that I use for my books. There's definitely a sleep hygiene protocol here. Your chemicals, they have more. They can take more charge than you know. So it's really important to do your research and find out, what works and what doesn't, and pair that with good breathing habits.
Dr. Leslie, we are seeing a massive rise of childhood anxiety. If a child's in a sympathetic or fight or flight state all night due to struggling to breathe, are they starting the next day already losing battle against anxiety?
Yes, yes, they are. Yeah, it's scary to be scared. And a child who is in chronic sympathetic stimulation, their body is scared because it thinks it's in danger. And when someone is in danger, the anxiety rises. Again, the brain doesn't understand that the child is safe and sound in their bed or at home with their family or safe and sound learning in school. They don't, the brain doesn't know that. The body just does what the brain tells it to do. And that kicks in a level of anxiety. The fight or flight response, we equate that to like if you're being chased by a saber toothed tiger. I don't know about you, Daniel, but if I was chased by a saber-toothed tiger, I'd be a little anxious about that. Uh, and so, which is the appropriate response for that situation. But when a child is safe and sound, it's an inappropriate response. The brain and the body, it suffers.
Certainly, Dr. Leslie. Yeah. Parents usually listen for crying, but what are the subtle, quieter sounds of respiratory distress parents should be listening for in the middle of the night?
Yes, snoring, even just a little bit. It's not genetic. Snoring is not genetic. It's a postural issue, an obstructive issue. It needs to be paid attention to, even if it's just a little bit, all the way to a lot bit. You want to pay attention to that. Struggled breathing. If it sounds like the air is having a hard time passing through, if you can audibly, if the child's breathing is audible, if you can hear the child breathing while they're sleeping or even when they're awake, Daniel, that's a red flag. It's a warning sign. Those are the things that parents should be listening for, but they should also be watching for that open mouth posture. They should be watching for how the child is sleeping in bed. Are they peaceful or are they restless? Night terrors, sleepwalking, sleep talking. Those are things that a parent should be paying attention to. Um, Bedwetting. Bedwetting is connected with mouth breathing and poor sleep, not just anxiety, which the anxiety and the poor sleep go together now, as we know, Daniel. So, bedwetting is not normal. And that's not something that a child is going to grow out of. It's a cry for help. And many pediatricians will tell the parents, oh, it's okay. Johnny, he's 11, 12. He's just going through a moment, hormones. So they'll grow out of it. It's not socially acceptable for that young boy or that young girl to be wetting the bed. It has those social implications. It has the self-conscious component to it as well. It's not good overall, and it needs to be investigated if a child has that problem. The other thing that a parent can be listening for is teeth grinding. Grinding teeth isn't just reserved for adults in stressful situation. Children will grind their teeth, and as a dentist, with many years under my belt in the beginning of my career, I thought teeth grinding was just the child's jaw growing. I just thought that was their effort. It's not. It's a sign that the child may not be breathing properly and is struggling to breathe and trying to open their airway. So if a parent hears the snoring, the audible breathing, the teeth grinding, the sleep talking, if they see the sleep walking or the restless sleep or the wetting of the bed, those are all things that a parent should be looking for with their child.
Dr. Leslie, thank you for all those tips. As a licensed dentist and orofacial myologist, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my short-term goals is to help right now as many children as possible, but I can't do it alone. I really
Mhm.
need a team of healthcare professionals who can get on board with this and understand it, and hopefully, at some point become as passionate about it as I am. We're talking about the future of our civilization, not to sound too far out there, but I mean, it's
Mhm.
true. We're raising anxious, depressed, suicidal children because their brains aren't functioning properly because they're not growing and breathing properly. Long-term goals, I'd like to see more and more individuals in the dentistry profession, in the therapist profession, occupational therapists, physical therapists. I'd like to see them getting more into understanding and learning the muscles of the oral cavity, the head, neck, and face and airway, so that they can help more children and even adults, sleep better and live better. I think it's good and healthy for everyone. And if more and more people get involved, then who knows, maybe more of my centers will pop up everywhere.
Good luck to your goals, Dr. Leslie, and looking forward for more success. And thank you for your legacy to the world. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to have the same advocacy to the world?
Oh, you're going to come across many obstacles, people, and things that will get in your way. There's going to be bumps along the road, but whatever you know your legacy to be, keep working in that direction. As tired and tiring and as hard as it can be sometimes, the end result, it's going to be worth it. So you just keep going.
Keep going, people. Stop procrastinating. Share your talent to the world and build your legacy as Dr. Leslie Pasco doing. So let's talk about the myofunctional therapy. Dr. Leslie, for our listeners who have never heard of it, what does a personal trainer of a face actually do? And why is it cruel to assume a child will just grow out of a tongue thrust?
Oh, yeah. Well, myofunctional therapy works with the muscles of the head, neck, the face, the jaw, and in our case, the airway. We have specific myofunctional exercises like little push ups or planks for the tongue and the lips and the jaw, and even the muscles that connect to the airway that children and even adults can do. Very easy to accomplish that help to tone and retrain the positioning and structure and function of those muscles. Uh, that's what myofunctional therapy is there to help with. The tongue thrust is a hard habit to break. It's a very damaging habit, a very damaging muscular habit. And that tongue thrust is happening with or without the conscious recognition while a child is, anything that the child is doing, but especially when the child is swallowing. The swallowing pattern is really important. And every time that child swallows and that tongue moves into the wrong direction, it separates the teeth. It's an orthodontist's worst nightmare because it's very hard to fix those teeth when you have the force and the strength of that tongue misbehaving in the way. And so a lot of times our myofunctional therapy exercises, not just for tongue thrusts, Daniel, but for everything, it parallels and complements what an orthodontist is doing because it makes the orthodontist job a lot easier because they're not fighting against that tongue thrust or those lips that are too weak so the teeth keep flaring out. It's balancing all those muscles in harmony and it's helping that orthodontist get a really good result that will last for a long time. And that's where myofunctional therapy can come in play with orthodontic treatment and help with the tongue thrust because that habit won't go away on its own. It will always be there.
Very well said, Dr. Leslie. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in sixth season to geography 101. Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101, our fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101, fourth season, Spiritual Awakening, Trivia 101, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, my Bible Verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Leslie, when you look at a teenager of a young adult who has successfully treated for breathing issue at the age of 5 or 6, what specific changes do you see then, not just their health, but in their confidence, academic performance, and emotional regulation that the world might miss?
Well, we talked about the bedwetting. We have young boys that are coming in 11, 12, 13 years old that have that problem that are ashamed and they're embarrassed in front of their friends. Their confidence skyrockets when they start breathing better. We've had parents tell us that after these children go through their breathing retraining and their muscle reprogramming, they're performing better athletically. They're getting picked to be on the team. They're doing better on their team, and the coach is utilizing them more. And instead of taking them out of the game, they're putting them in more and more and more. And so that boosts and raises their confidence. They're not snoring, they're sleeping. Those are all really usual symptom improvements that we see. One of the things I wasn't expecting, Daniel, is how it brings families closer together. When a child is disruptive to the family because they're not well rested and their emotions aren't regulated, once we get that under control, the joy that they bring to their family and the way that family comes closer together, that's not something that I expected as a result, but it's a huge win, and I'm really happy to share that. It can happen, and it does, and we hear it in our center every day.
Indeed, Dr. Leslie, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Yes, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote on
Oh,
Abstract Essay?
yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, I invite you. You should visit our website at myoacenters.com. There is so much information there that you can learn and share. We have an entire section for professionals who want to learn more about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. An entire research area with publications and articles that support everything that I talked about today. That's the best way to find out more about us and to find out how you can work with us too. I do continuing education lectures and educational presentations for other healthcare professionals. You can reach me through that website. I'm available for that too.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Leslie Pasco because if you support her, for sure, more and more advocacy like this to rise. So, Dr. Leslie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
Markham people, see you soon.